Welcome back, everyone, to another new episode of Grow Your Path to Wellness. Last episode, we hosted the amazing Tiffany Lewis, and we talked about ways to prioritize your purpose and motherhood. And then, per usual, we were in the midst of that episode, and it kind of led us to another jumping off point, so to speak. And we also kind of touched on how to prioritize your purpose and wellness and your professional life as well, and what role you're filling there. But this week we had a last minute schedule change. So Amanda and we decided this time of year and something that's been relevant in both of our lives and just physical wellness. We talked, professional and some other roles last week, but this week we decided we wanted to address the important topic of, from an alternative lens than what many of us are given and used to hearing, I guess. So we're going to talk about a more holistic approach to staying physically well. So good to see you, Amanda. And we see you and we chat periodically, of course, but this is nice.
I always like seeing my friend, and I like to have focused time to develop our relationship too. Yeah. Because when we have guests, I love that when we nerd out in our own ways and connect in our own ways then, but also the one-on-one time is valuable. Mm-hmm. So Kelsi is sicky.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you can't tell in her voice.
I was in my head, but I'm on the tail end of it. It hit me probably about 3 days ago, and here we are. So
at least it's moving through pretty quick.
Yeah, this one did not stick with me. This was when I had COVID. I feel like it lasted forever, like 2 weeks or something crazy. So this is just one of the colds, and had it for a few days and almost there.
So actually, I don't know. I wonder if it's the same thing, even though we're 3 hours apart, because my son had an illness, but I swear it's the fastest cold I've ever seen anyone go through. It was just sick and snotty.
Yeah, I was I felt absolutely awful, but no fever. I just, all the things. And it was funny, not haha funny. I say that all the time. But I remember I was I feel awful. Ironic, yeah. And you're rain too. And I'm everybody I'm talking to is so sick right
now. So when we talked about this, my idea was kind of talking about really preventative wellness and a holistic approach to that and what that really means. But now as we're talking, I also think later on it's important for us to touch on when you are sick and how those other areas of wellness, like our mental health and our brains, can do interesting things when we're isolating. I think that's a moment we should talk about too. But when I think about this, I think about, if you haven't already, we have had Lisa Shaver on here many, many times. She has whole chakra healing series, trauma and chakra healing. Highly recommend go back and listen to all of those. Lisa always comes from that energy perspective, right? Everything's energy, vibrations, all of those things, and how different areas of our lives can be impacted by, if our energy is depleted. And I think about this when I teach my clients about the mind-body connection, or if I'm here on a podcast educating on it, is that when we are stressed significantly, whether that's working too many hours or not having good boundaries or not having room for both home, family, life, and work, whether that's lack of movement and nutrition, what nutrition's going in our body, whether it's lack of social connection. If we feel a heightened stress response, I think typically people don't understand that your stress response is a part of a physical system in your body. Yeah. So biologically, if your stress response is activated and geared up and ready to go, naturally, all of your other systems, your endocrine system, your pulmonary system, your
digestive system,
respiratory system, all of those systems are then depleted of the energy that they need to function at 100%. Not that they're totally offline and just not functioning at all, but they're not doing what they need to do, including your immune system. Mm-hmm. And when you're under more and more and more stress and your body's exuding more cortisol than it's humanly supposed to, then your immune system can get depleted. And I think people, even for myself, I'm I'm washing my hands, wait, I don't remember being around anyone that was sick. Why are we sick? And I forget about these other factors that make you more susceptible to getting sick, and then making it more challenging for you when you are sick to recover and fight that off.
Yes. And I think we can get stuck in that state. I think all of us do. And then it's a whole other rabbit hole that I would not go off on. But if you come from, a traumatic environment, upbringing as well, that programs our nervous systems to be very sensitized, and just living in our world also does that. Like I've seen clients have like skin responses, like because of the inflammation that's happening in their body, and we go right, our whole purpose for recording today was like an alternative lens to view this from, because I think typically, or what we're commonly taught is, like you said, Amanda, like where did I get this? Because we're not doctors. I know we wanted to say that out loud. So like viruses, bacteria, that stuff makes us sick. And there's myths and things, but the susceptibility is what I think we wanted to touch on the most, and to say, yeah, you want to know, maybe I was around somebody where I caught this, or what's causing this response in my body. But if you take it way back, that's kind of one of our biggest things is, am I in a place, in a state of dysregulation and inflammation, making me more susceptible if I come into contact with something that intrudes into my body.
And we're not doctors.
Yeah.
And also, this is research, this is science. So like there is, there are books and information out there on the internet about that, right? So if you just kind of develop that competency, but also, yes, we're not doctors. The other part too is that when, I don't know, I think I hear people a lot say, well, I'm just really stressed, I just need to get rid of some of the stress in my life. Because we don't teach this, we think that this is like an external locus of control, and it's out of our ability to manage or address. And yes, there's privilege and how you're able to access the resources to address these sorts of things. And also it does us a disservice, because we think if I get a different job, if I get out of this relationship, if I start eating better and exercise or whatever those things are, that my stress will go away. And we forget that it's an internal response. And so that's one of the beautiful things about going to therapy, is that yeah, you can go when stuff is really hard, but you also learn the basic life skills of taking care of this beautiful vessel that we have been given and weren't taught how to regulate. So our nervous system is out of alignment, and something you can use to bring that back down is your breath that's with you all the time, right? Or visualization, or right, like all these other coping skills that we're teaching in therapy, but not everyone is able to access. And therefore, I don't know, it does them a disservice, especially when it's the sick time of year. And, maybe not, I'm not saying like do some breath work and you'll never get sick. But if you add that as one of your like healthy life preventative wellness factors, it might make a difference.
Yeah, I think we take, before, like growing up, even in our family, it was very much like what's taught to us is like what feels like a quick fix, or I'll take some of that PTO and I'll take a vacation that will make me feel less stressed. But at the end of the day, I mean, I love to travel as much as anybody, but I had to check myself and say, okay, it's a very specific example, but if you're not making sustainable changes in, and being, I think one of the things we talk about all the time is like, you have to be connected to your physical body, like existing in it and knowing how can I tell whenever I'm getting stuck in a place of dysregulation and that stress response. It's not always as extreme as like fight, flight, freeze, it can be just what some people might label as anxiety. Like for me, that's how it kind of manifests. I hold a lot of physical tension and just kind of a sense of urgency. I describe it to people. And if I start to notice that for myself, that's when I'm like, did I get away from some of these things, holistically, whether or not I have a virus or thing going on, but being connected with your body and knowing what it's telling you, like in listening to that. I know us as therapists, and I know on this podcast, if you've listened to us, we say that a lot. like, listen to your body, but we say it a lot for a reason because it's sending you all of these signals, and then you'll get to the place where I'm highly susceptible to physical illness, and then I have to kind of regroup and do a little bit of backtracking, so to speak, but in a sustainable way, not in a,
Mhm.
well, if I do this, then that'll all go away and I'll feel better.
Yeah. I also think it's important to highlight here. I'm like thinking of a few clients, and also myself. There's been several people that like, whether it's their disposition or their behaviors or their engagement with me or their outward symptoms, I can tell that there's a heightening or a response going on. Yet, A, we're not taught how to tune in.
Yes.
B, there's so much in American society or modern society in general that keeps us out of our body and distracted, right? Like on the task, the job, the whatever. That when I ask people, if they feel, and I'll list like, does your chest get to like what happens in your body? Like, does that make you nervous at all? Or do you feel any kind of response in that? And they're like, no, I don't really think anything, like I don't notice anything in my body. It's just my mind, right? And so they'll go to like mind racing, but we kind of, and that's a lesson, a skill to be taught is how to get back embodied because we've become so separated, and almost dissociated from what's happening in our body. And when we sit and we take a few breaths or we tap back into our bodies in the present moment, we'll say, oh yeah, my toes are clenched. I didn't even notice that,
Yeah.
right? When they do a full body scan, they're like, oh, right. Yesterday, this is a little bit of a squirreling, but Jenna at our practice is an art therapist, and she's been doing some really cool creative workshops. But yesterday she did Zen Tangle Detangle. And it was so cool. I learned how to do Zen tangles. I've tried to do them before. It's a really awesome mindfulness doodle. I've learned how to do them before, but my brain couldn't come up with the examples. So she gave examples and that really helped. And even still, I'm like on this paper and I'm like, oh, I like this. And I'm like tense and like holding my breath. And I'm like, I'm supposed to be like Zen right now. Like I'm
Be
right.
mindful and yeah.
And it's like, just because I recognize that one time doesn't mean I'm done, especially like you said, if you grew up in a traumatic environment or have had significant things happen in your life where you're more susceptible to that. It's not necessarily that it ever goes away. It's just that you get better at catching and releasing.
Yep. Yeah. In our field, we say, like, I guess with my clients, I can only speak for myself. I always I come from a position that these things didn't form, and kind of programmed for us overnight. So they're not going to just shut off overnight by doing X, Y, and Z exercises. However, and they may never fully go away. And I think people kind of like, well, that's what I'm coming here for. And I'm like, no, what we need to figure out is how to navigate the human experience and from a different, more regulated, more what does that look like for each person? And I think
Mhm.
saying, yeah, these things might not just shut off, or I might not, notice extreme differences, but when I do, you get a lot better at noticing when that's happening. And then I have a lot more things or tools or supports that I can turn to. And then over time, that baseline decreases. And whenever I work with clients and I watch them get more embodied and existing there, it's very interesting because they might go back to or be exposed again to people, places, things, activators. Um, if it is sitting down and doing an artistic activity, they very much like more quickly, they're more sensitive and they have that awareness now to be like, oh, why? Oh, that's happening. Instead of it just, yeah, like I feel like that the majority of the time. So it just feels like I have thoughts, I have racing thoughts. So you definitely proactively can address it and decrease that, and then decrease our susceptibility to things that make us feel unwell, I guess.
So because we're not doctors,
Correct. Uh-huh.
again, like if you read like or if you can even watch on YouTube if reading local library or something, but The Deepest Well, Nadine Burke Harris, or any of Gabor Mate's, like I'm looking at The Myth of Normal, Trauma, Illness, and
Body
Healing
says
in a Toxic Culture, When the Body Says No, My Grandmother's Hands, all of those. However, I did find, I Googled a Cleveland Clinic, to give you a physical physician, representation. So I'm just going to read this little blurb. In short spurts, cortisol can boost your immunity. So cortisol is what's emitted in your stress response by limiting inflammation. But over time, your body can get used to having too much cortisol in your blood, and this opens the door for more inflammation. In addition, stress decreases the body's lymphocytes. Those are the white blood cells that help fight off infection. The lower your lymphocytes level, the more at risk you are for viruses, including the common cold and cold sores. High stress levels can also cause depression and anxiety, again, leading to higher levels of inflammation. In the long term, sustained high levels of inflammation point to an overworked, overtired immune system that can't properly protect you. So there's the medical facts of it. And I think that's a good segue into when you're stressed, you can have depression and anxiety. When you're sick, and we all need human connection, right? Like, as much as we don't want to admit it, and maybe we're still hesitant to do that in person, we do need human connection, and we know how easily, if not taught how to combat it, we can isolate, and mental health conditions, substance use, unhelpful coping skills can grow and be fostered in an isolated environment. I'm rambling. Kelsi, help me. We need to talk.
okay, so you went here, right? And the first thing that came to my mind was like, I think it was via text. We were like texting, and I remember you saying, or maybe it was on Snapchat, I can't remember. You had posted a picture of Rain, your little one, and was like, they say socialize your kids, they say. And then I think either before that or shortly even after that, I like subconsciously was like, dang, I relate, because I'm pretty sure we go back to I think I got sick from blank. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't, like whatever. But I was like, yeah, like I'm never going around anybody else again because I'm so sick. And it's like, and those are the two like examples of like where my brain took that. It was like, I blame socializing with people, so I didn't want to isolate, because obviously human brains are very situational, and I felt absolutely awful. So that's where I was at the time. And now that I'm coming out of it, I'm like, and luckily this one didn't last as long as some other illnesses, but that's exactly the first place that I went to. Like, I know I need rest. I know I've been eating really nutritious food because I have access to that. I'm privileged to have access to that. I was doing all the other things, but I was like, socializing? No, thank you. No, that's how I got sick. Thanks.
And like you said, our brains are very situational, and they're built to protect us. So in those moments where we're super vulnerable, it's like, you know what? Least restrictive way, like easiest answer, least restrictive. You know what the answer is? Just don't be around people. And if you're susceptible to mental health conditions, or you have trauma, or you already have a history of anxiety or depression, that is a very vulnerable place to be, because your brain can easily latch on all sorts of, yep, don't go out there. Oh, and then look at the news, and oh, look what's happening with these numbers. Oh, right. And that can really spiral really fast if you don't have the right support systems in place. And I think also just to normalize for people, when you are isolated, and this is kind of going back, I know COVID is still out there, but back to when we were really locked in and our world's changed, like, just to validate for people, your brain is really trying to protect you. And so many people, when they were isolated at home, got very depressed, anxious, and had a lot of significant like suicidal thoughts of, maybe I just shouldn't be here, or things like that. And although you definitely want to get support so that that doesn't worsen, and you follow through with that, just to normalize for people that your brain is doing what it's built to do, right? It doesn't want you to hurt anymore, and it makes very black and white connections to make that not happen again without context.
Yes. And I think sometimes I have this conversation, I have to have this conversation with myself a lot, and then I have it with my clients a lot, is like, it's okay to, give yourself permission to kind of pull away if you feel like you need to, figuring out what's my, warning signs that I'm maybe socially or energetically being depleted.
Mhm.
And it's okay to need time. And the difference between like loneliness and solitude. I've heard that somewhere, and I make that distinction with my clients a lot now. And it's like solitude is something that is meeting, a need in a functional way. Like I need time to exist in solitude to refill myself. And then loneliness is something that is, an unmet need that I'm, you know, staying stuck in basically, or I'm lacking connection and resources and the support that I actually need. So I like to differentiate that. And if we're talking about being embodied, like I notice certain things about myself whenever I'm like, and I need it more than my partner. So, he needs different things whenever he notices things for himself as far as time. His is the opposite. Like he
Mhm.
doesn't need a whole lot of solitude time. And for me, I do. And learning that for ourselves, giving ourselves that permission. And also at the same time, it can be hard to be like, okay, well, I don't want to go because I have plans tomorrow evening with two friends to go to like a workshop and things. And part of me is like, that's not something I want to do. What I want to do is to finish my work day and stay at home and all the things. But then I'm like, but what I need to do is I need to go and I need to connect now, because like I'm past this, feeling super unwell. I just sound worse than what I feel now. And I'm like, yeah, I took that time. I took the time I needed. Um,
And
now,
you're doing it not because, sorry, but just
no,
like, because for me, like for a second that got switched because I was like, wait, but you want, you need, but are you doing it because it's a should? But you didn't say should. It
right.
wasn't like I should be,
Well, I
right?
love
It
that you
was,
pointed that out. Yes, 100%.
right? Yeah. So like, I think, I don't know, that's like the line of like pushing yourself because it
Yeah.
sounds to me like your brain is tired and it's like, well, what's the easiest thing
Yeah.
to not have to do effort? And it's like,
Yeah.
stay home and cuddle with your dog. And although that sounds great, socializing is probably really going to fill you up so that the rest of your week is. Now, if you think like, hey, I'm already depleted, I've already socialized and, drained that well, then of course, I think it sounds like that's like the healthy push you have to give yourself to
Yeah.
motivate, not get stuck.
It's so hard to ask, or to be able to distinguish between those two things. Like at what point am I kind of enabling myself and
Mhm.
keeping myself at this place? Because I remember I posted something. I don't post often on Facebook, but I made some kind of post. I don't know, maybe I was watching something, or oh, I was making a joke about how I couldn't breathe through my nose. And multiple people had either messaged me or like texted me or commented. And in that moment, for whatever reason, because our brains are situational, right? I was like, holy cow. A lot of people are telling me like that they hope I feel better soon. And like I was really bummed and I was really frustrated that we couldn't go to like this really nice dinner thing that we made reservations for, the little local place here. And my husband went and picked up the food, so they let us pick it up. And he said, yeah, they said that they really hope that you feel better soon. And I'm like, oh, but I feel that I'm
People
like,
care.
oh, that's so nice. So I was like, I need to go. I need to go. Yeah.
Mhm. And like you have an out. So like if you get there and you're like, this is too much,
Yeah.
like, you're not
I
stuck.
tell that to my clients all the time. I know this isn't, about therapy and what we tell our clients, but I mean, even friends and things, it's like I'm always the first like super understanding person. Like I'm always very transparent. If somebody's like, "Hey, do you wanna ride together?" Because I live out in the middle of nowhere, so that's a very kind thing to offer to carpool. But if I'm like, I'll just say, no, I think it would be better for me, to drive separate. I really appreciate you asking. So that way, 'cause you don't have to say yes to those things. Like it's okay to say, no, I think I'm
Thanks
gonna.
for the offer. I'm gonna drive myself.
Like, you can do that. Like, that's okay to do.
Yeah. I know we could easily go off on so many tangents because I'm like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
you don't have to explain your. All right, that's not this episode, Amanda. Another episode, we'll talk about how to set boundaries effectively. And I think,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, just randomly one more, because I think setting boundaries is helpful to keeping you well and keeping your stress response down. So it all connects. But people always say, like, no is a complete sentence, and I agree. And also, when you don't know how to do boundaries at all because no one ever taught you, that's like master's level boundary
Yeah. Just
setting.
say no. What?
Like, that's
Justify
not a
like,
stepping, that's not the first step, nor the second or third. And also, like, but there's certain times where no is appropriate, but it's very rare. And it's okay for you to be like, no, that doesn't work for me. Or, like, we have to give people the rest of the language around that.
yes. Give opportunity to understand. And I think it really can be connection by, connection basis, but
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Well, I think that's kind of all that came to mind for me with the topic today.
Yeah, just, I think, be sure to not just in a place of quote unquote, as therapists, we use this kind of in different frames of reference, but taking care of yourself in a preventative and, proactive way rather than from a place of a crisis. And
Mm-hmm.
holy cow, I'm so sick. And sometimes we just get sick. You can be doing the things, right? I don't know, but also we just wanted to kind of hop on and make sure that we're not just to recommend we're not all taking a holy cow, I'm in a crisis, I'm so sick, I need to get medicine and make a doctor's appointment, and then I'm going to go back to all of the things that maybe led up to or didn't put me in the
Mm-hmm.
best place prior to that.
And because I'm a nerd, and so people on YouTube can see this. I'll put, like, a link to it in the podcast so people can see. Listen, our whole podcast is based on this. Is this backwards?
Mm-mm.
Our whole podcast is based on this 8 dimensions of wellness, right? And it's by SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration. Just step one, highly recommend, just look at these circles and mindfully check in with yourself. How do I do in these areas? What is the current situation of that area and how I would like the wellness of that area to be? Not any judgment, not any, oh my gosh, I have to fix everything, not any alarm of, like, running to change everything, but just a mindful check-in. And then you now have gathered information that is tangibly in front of you to be able to say, what adjustments could I make that might impact multiple? Right. I always give this example of, like, a client shared that they started kayaking, and I nerded out and got so excited because I was like, oh my God. And you like it. And it's covering, like, 4 dimensions of wellness because you find it meditative. So it's spiritual. You are outside in nature. So that's environmental. You're socializing, doing it with other people. So that's social. What was the other one? I can't think of right now. Physical, because of the effort you have to, like, kayak. Right. And I'm spiraling, I know, but check in with yourself on each dimension, see how you're doing, but don't get overwhelmed that you now have to change something in 8 dimensions. You might be able to do a couple things different that impacts other ones, right? Like, if you're setting healthier boundaries at work, you are going to maybe sleep better or have better relationships at home and communication at home or things like that. With the trickle effect.
Yes, and it's on my website, and part of my mission and vision, is we want to teach people the interconnectedness of their being. So I say that all the time.
So Kelsi and I rarely talk about ourselves because we're always talking about other people, but Kelsi has a really cool ecotherapy workshop coming up.
I'm super excited. It's one of the first things, like, that I've branched out to do a little bit differently. I've been really kind of focused and super busy with individual client sessions, and I'm excited to start come warmer weather, come spring. So next month, on March 11th, it's a Saturday afternoon. I know we probably have listeners from all over the place, but I'm located southeastern Ohio, so it'll be an in-person ecotherapy workshop. So I'm going to be having people come together, connect, get our hands dirty, and I'll talk about, and I'm going to nerd out about the benefits of getting your hands dirty, and just whether it's growing your own food, or people are going to walk away with some concrete things, but just teaching about the holistic benefits of things like home gardening, and ways that it can actually be practical and something that anybody can do, even if you live in an apartment with a balcony and really little green space. So I'm super excited. People will walk away with 3 starter plants, and I look forward to it being outside and getting some fresh air and connecting with people. So yeah, next month on the 11th, and more information can be found on my website at guidanceandgrowthpsychotherapy.com.
Also, plants are really great for oxygenating your air and purifying the air. So having them in your space is good for your immune system and your health. So it all comes back. It all comes back. All right. So I will link the 8 dimensions of wellness, so y'all can check that out and inform yourselves and empower yourself to take care of your wellness. I will link Kelsi's Guidance and Growth Psychotherapy website, so you can learn about all of her services, including that upcoming workshop.
And your panel, Amanda. Do you want? And then I have my download already on my website, and I'm going to.
I got a panel. So hey, people on the audio can't hear us, but we're like putting hands around our mouth, like we're.
And apparently, I just talk about plants and being outside and dirt and stuff. That's my thing, I guess.
We're doing a panel series of expert panelists that are words are really hard right now. We're doing one panel for each dimension of wellness. So in February, already this month, we had our very first one. It was financial wellness, and that one was so good. We are also in April doing not ecotherapy, environmental wellness, and Kelsi's going to join that and talk about it. So you can go to our website, and I will link that here. Check out our calendar to see all of them. So we're doing them through June or July right now. So yeah, all of those are wonderful. We're gonna have mental wellness, physical wellness, all of them. So make sure you check those out. And we will see you next time, where I am bringing in Kevin Snow. He is the co-founder of Success Champion Networking. It's a group that I've gotten connected with and do some leadership roles in, and it's just wonderful. But he is going to be talking about surviving the 0 to 0 cycle as a salesperson. So kind of connects to wellness as, like, I don't know, I think in general, even as therapists, like, we still have to sell our service, and it gets kind of
I was very intrigued as soon as
and we're not able to talk about it a lot. So I think it falls into occupational wellness. I know we know everyone that listens here, it doesn't do therapy, right? So I'm sure you have things going on that you're uncomfortable with, or maybe you're feeling like an imposter with. So I'm looking forward to talking to Kevin about something more occupational wellness type situation, because I don't think we get a lot of those on here, like we did with Tiffany, but that was kind of
financial but not this one.
Yeah, so this will be a cool pivot. So I'm excited to have Kevin coming in next week. As always, make sure you ring our bell or subscribe or follow us, and let us that way you know when the most recent episodes are coming up, and leave us comments and feedback. We love to pivot and make adjustments as needed for our audience. So we will see you next time. Take care.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.